Cuddling with the fishy. But he won't cuddle with me.
We are just completely skipping the intro today because I had my ortho appointment this morning and holy shit, do my teeth hurt? Because not only are they all wrapped up in whatever the heck you call that stuff again, I now have the rubber bands. So I'm like 2.5 months away from it being 2 years since I got braces. And obviously, like, these rubber bands are like a staple of having braces. It's kind of gotten to the point where I was wondering, like, am I ever gonna have them? Well, today is the day. And this is the most I've tried talking with them so far because obviously, like, I'm home alone right now. It's Monday, Tom was at work. So who the hell have I had to talk to? And I'm realizing that it's kind of interfering with my speech a little bit. It's giving me a bit of a lisp with some words. So that feels a bit weird. It's gonna take some getting used to because, like, as I'm talking, I feel it touching like the sides of my mouth here, and yeah, it feels weird. I don't like it. I feel like my lips don't go over it like they're supposed to. It just is strange. And then when my mouth is closed, I can feel them on the side of my tongue. So maybe I'm gonna sound a little weird for a bit. But yeah, now you're really gonna be able to see it when I talk too. Like, oh god. But they only come off when I eat or brush my teeth, and I've had breakfast and lunch so far today. So I've already had to take them off and put new ones on twice. And it's weird, it's annoying. Luckily there's like a little tool to make it easier, but like 2 out of 10 don't really recommend kind of thing. So like my entire top row of teeth here really hurt. Like instead of brushing, I just use the water pick because there's no way, like just the water pick hurt kind of thing. There's no way brushing was going to be possible. So yeah, I suspect that this is going to be pretty sore for the next week. So not a fun time ahead. And yeah, I'm just going to keep doing this because like, this is so weird. It's so weird. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's pulling when I'm talking, but like my mouth is so sore, I just really don't think I can tell right now, to be honest. It's not in a happy place right now. But anyway, I've not read my chapter yet. I'm actually going to do some cleaning around the apartment first. I've been procrastinating on that a bit, and so I really want to do that before I start procrastinating more. But yeah, I just wanted to pop in here and share how miserable I am right now. But hopefully that won't prevent me from updating later. We'll kind of see on that. And 5.5 hours later, here we are again in much worse lighting because the sun went down a while ago. So I finished cleaning, painted my nails, made and ate dinner, and then finally read my chapter in Les Miserables for today. And we are actually dealing with 2 characters that are not named in this chapter, although I have my theories, and talking with these bands is still really freaking weird. So this chapter is called The Man Pursued, and pretty much is talking about how, like, even though there's this borderline revolution happening, there's still gonna be normal police, like, out and about. Like, this isn't a night where just people can go and do anything, like, it's not the purge kind of thing. And so it's talking about this guy who is trying to hide from this cop that's trailing him, and it's just like a cat and mouse game type of thing. And they're both unnamed, but I assume the guy is Thénardier, and the policeman might be Javert, even though he was like just released from the barricade. Javert is kind of like that, I think, though, where he would just instantly go back to being a cop kind of thing. But that's the one that I'm more unsure about. It's pretty much just describing how they're just kind of going across Paris in this cat and mouse game, and the guy goes around a corner expecting to have his mouse cornered kind of thing, and there's no one there. And he's like, what the fuck? And he's looking around, and then he realizes there's a grate in the ground to the sewer, and he's just like, holy shit. And he tries to lift it up and stuff, doesn't work. He's like, oh my god, he must have had a key. And so he's just kind of sitting there waiting to see if the guy pops back up kind of thing. And like, that's it. That's the whole chapter. That's where it ends. And so I'm thinking that the guy that went in the sewer is probably Thénardier, and since he has a key and everything, I'm assuming he's going to come across Jean Valjean, and I don't know, I don't think he would give it away willingly, but maybe Jean Valjean gets the key somehow and like uses that to get out of the sewer, and then when he pops up, Javert is kind of there. But I'm thinking that since Jean Valjean let him go, if the situation's reversed, Javert might let Jean Valjean go, so I'm not really sure how it's going to play out, but that's who I think those people are and what the setup is. I didn't even see what the next chapter is called. He too bears his cross. Oh. So with that, it seems like we are jumping back to Jean Valjean, so we'll see who else he ends up encountering in these sewers.
Look at you, funny girl. What you doing? Why are you upside down? Where are you going?
You're riling her up even more. Hey.
Well, then you touch her, and that really does it. Look at that. Look at that cutie girl. You think you're a rag doll? Oh my goodness. What do?
She's pressing buttons.
Oh god. And she gone. Oh jeez.
It doesn't matter how dark it actually is outside, the backlit nonsense is always going to be fucking annoying. So it's a really gloomy rainy day. I am so freaking tired right now. Oh my god. I feel like I'm dying. I just did a bunch of cleaning, and annoying cleaning at that. And there's a lot of honking going on outside right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's been going for several minutes now, and I don't know what's happening. Anyway, my teeth are feeling a little bit better today. They're still really sore though, especially if they're touched in the front here, but the rubber bands are fine. It's whatever. It's easier to get used to than I expected, but I did just finish my chapter in Les Mis, and I'm going to read a few paragraphs out from it because it's mainly just kind of more descriptions of what Jean Valjean is experiencing and how Marius looks kind of thing. And there is also one funny sentence in here as well. But I'm actually just going to start right at the beginning of this chapter. This is page 1084. This just kind of really gives a good picture of what it's like being down there. Jean Valjean had resumed his journey without again stopping. It became more and more laborious. The height of the passageway varies, being of an average 5 feet 6 inches. Valjean had to bend down to prevent Marius rubbing against the roof, and he had to feel his way constantly along the wall. The dampness of the stone and the slipperiness of the floor offered insecure hand and footholds. He staggered in the horrid excrement of the town. The lights of vent-holes appeared only at long intervals, so pallid that what was sunlight might have been moonlight. All else was mist, miasma, and darkness. Valjean was both hungry and thirsty, especially thirsty in that place of water where there was none to drink. Even his great strength, so little diminished with age, was beginning to flag, and the weight of his burden increased with his fatigue. He was carrying Marius so as best to allow him freedom to breathe. He felt the scuttle of rats beneath his feet, and one was so startled as to bite him. From time to time, he was revived by a gust of fresh air from the vent-holes. And so from there, he actually makes his way to what the book calls a ring sewer. And so it's basically this big circle, and there's 4 different directions he can go now. And he ends up picking the way where it's the biggest passageway, but it's also going down, which he believes is toward the Seine. And Victor Hugo does this really weird thing here where he's it's a good reason he went that way, because if he had gone this way, this is what would have happened. And so he spends a few paragraphs talking about what would have happened if he went the wrong way, and it's why? You could just say what it would be instead of having to spend a few paragraphs on it. It's a little strange. And then this is on the very next page. It says, with the gentleness of a man handling a wounded brother, Valjean laid Marius down at the edge of the sewer. Marius's blood-stained face in the pallid light of the hatchway was like a face of death. His eyes were closed, the hair plastered to his temples, his hands limp and dangling, and there was blood at the corners of his mouth. Gently thrusting inside his shirt, Valjean laid a hand on his chest and found that his heart was still beating. Tearing strips off his own shirt, he bandaged Marius's wounds as best he could. Then, bending over the unconscious form in that dim light, he stared at him with an inexpressible hatred. He found 2 objects in Marius's clothing, the piece of bread left from the day before and his wallet. He ate the bread and, opening the wallet, found on the first page the lines Marius had written. My name is Marius Pontmercy. My body is to be taken to the house of my grandfather, M. Gillenormand, 6 Rue de Fille du Calvaire, in the Marais. Valjean pored over the message, memorizing the address. Then he replaced the wallet in Marius's pocket. He had eaten and regained his strength. Taking Marius on his back with his head on his right shoulder, he resumed his downward path. So I'm assuming maybe that's where they're going to head when he finally gets out of the sewer, but I'm also really shocked he hasn't found anyone else yet. I really thought he was going to run into Thénardier by now. I don't know. I know Victor Hugo really likes to go into descriptions, so I guess him just continuing to describe this descent into the sewer, makes sense. It's on brand for him. But also it's a bit repetitive, obviously, by now. But I feel I do understand because, it's a really long walk. He's been walking forever. the very end of the chapter, he basically is saying that Valjean thinks like he's at the edge of Paris now, like he's not even in the center anymore. So having it be repetitive and being talking about this walk and walk and walk, I think it does show like how deep the sewer is, how long he's having to walk, how much time has passed kind of thing. So I actually think it's worth it that he's talking about it so much. But the next chapter is called The Treachery of Sand, and I really have no idea what that's going to be about. But tomorrow I'll probably read 2 chapters, because that one's like just over 2 pages, and then the next one after that is only 1.5 pages, so I'll probably read both of those then. But yeah, this chapter is showing no signs of ending soon, so like I feel like we're just gonna be spending forever in the sewer now, so prepare for more of that in the coming days. Sorry if I'm in like the same position as yesterday or something, but today's been a bit of a day, so I'm not gonna put any more effort than what I am into this. So last night I went to an event at the library for the first time ever, and that was a bit of a disappointment. The weather outside was fucking horrible last night, and normally I would take the metro and then a bus, but I ended up doing the metro and then walking because I was gonna risk being late if I took the bus and everything, and it was raining, so I didn't really want to just like be waiting in the rain. I'd rather be walking, which whatever, I guess. But there wasn't only rain, there was also wind, and I had to cross a bridge, and that was not a fun time. Like, the rain was literally like sideways because of the wind, and so by the time I got to the library, I was soaked. Like, my pants were soaked to where by the end of the event, it was just an hour-long event, I was freezing. I was so cold just from my clothes being wet, and when I went to put on my coat, I couldn't believe how wet my coat still was. And then going back, it was even worse. It was raining even more, and like when I was almost home, the wind like whacked my umbrella into my face and like almost knocked my headphones off my head and everything. Like, I had a headache afterwards because of it. And then the event itself, I was like, fingers crossed it's worth it kind of thing. And it really wasn't. It was called like Feminist Futures, and so it was going to be like a discussion on feminism and stuff, because the speaker was an author and she just came out with a book of like that same title kind of thing. And instead it stayed very, very like surface level and was more just her talking about feminist issues, and it's like, yeah, we know, what are we gonna do about it kind of thing. And she just never got there. So it was a bit of a disappointment in the end, and because of the weather, I don't think it was worth it, unfortunately. However, I did get to see the Eiffel Tower lit up, which I'm usually not out late enough to see, so that actually caught me by surprise. Like, I was just like head down with my umbrella, and I just kind of looked up and was like, oh shit, the Eiffel Tower is there. It was like I forgot where I was for a minute, but yeah, I just took like this little clip of it when it actually wasn't pouring down rain. So yeah, I'm a little bit salty about how last night went. But I did read, which way is this? I was showing it upside down for a second there. I did read 2 chapters in Les Miserables today, and I'm going to read the first few paragraphs of the first one, because this is talking about something I didn't know existed. Like, I don't know if this is talking about quicksand in general, but it's specifically talking about next to beaches, so I think it's something different, and it also doesn't call it quicksand, it calls it something different that I'd never heard of before. But this is the chapter called The Treachery of Sand, and this is on page 1086. It says, he found that he was moving in water, and that what he had under his feet was not stone, but sludge. It happens sometimes on the seacoast that a man walking at low tide far out along the beach suddenly finds that he is moving with difficulty. The going is heavy beneath his feet, no longer sand but glue. The surface is dry, but every footprint fills with water, yet all the beach wears the same aspect, so that the eye cannot distinguish between what is firm and what is not. The walker continues on his way, tending to move inland and feeling no disquiet. Why should he? But it is as though the heaviness of his feet increases with every step he takes. Suddenly, he sinks several inches. He pauses, and looking down at his feet, sees that they have disappeared. He picks up his feet and tries to turn back, but only sinks in deeper. The sand is over his ankles. He struggles and finds it reaching his calves. With indescribable terror, he realizes that he is in a patch of shifting sand where a man cannot walk any more than a fish can swim. He flings away whatever he is carrying, shedding his cargo like a vessel in distress. It is too late. The sand has reached his knees. He shouts, waving hat or handkerchief. while the sand gains upon him. If the beach is deserted and there is no heroic rescuer at hand, then he is done for, destined to be swallowed up, condemned to that appalling burial which can be neither hastened nor delayed, which may take hours, dragging down a strong and healthy man, the more remorselessly the more he struggles. He sees the world vanish from his gaze, sky, land, and sea. There is nothing he can do. The sand creeps up to his stomach, his chest. He waves his arms, shouts and groans in torment. The sand reaches his shoulders and neck, until nothing is left but staring eyes and a crying mouth that is suddenly silenced. Only an extended arm remains. The man is gone. This fateful occurrence, still possible on some seashores, was also possible 30 years ago in the Paris sewer. And so the rest of this chapter is just talking about how that is still possible in the Paris sewer and some instances where that happened. And so then the following chapter is called The Pits, and so you should be able to guess what this is about. So Jean Valjean ends up going through that experience. And so this is on page 1088. It says, the pit Valjean reached had been caused by the rain of the previous day. A depression in the flooring, insufficiently supported by the sand beneath, had led to a flood of rainwater, and the collapse of the floor had followed. The broken floor had subsided into the swamp. It was impossible to say over what distance. The darkness was greater here than anywhere else. It was a hole of mud in a cavern of night. And so he starts walking through this, and of course it gets deeper and deeper, and the water level's rising higher and higher, until he's like this, like with his head up and holding Marius like above him. It says that if anyone had seen him, it would have looked like a mask like floating on the water because it was that high. And I have like a freaking cat hair in my mouth, like on my lip or something, but I can't find it. And so I'm sorry if you can see it because it's really bothering me, but I can't find it to get it off. But anyway, he is literally holding Marius like above him. And it was talking about how there's this painting of like a woman in a flood, like holding her baby above him. And it's the same thing that Jean Valjean is doing with Marius now. And like just when all is lost kind of thing, his foot hits something solid, and it's actually the floor that had like collapsed. And so he ends up being able to pull himself out, and that is where that chapter ends. It's very short, but now he is obviously all wet and covered in disgusting filth. Like I couldn't even imagine being covered in that, like, ugh. And he still doesn't come across anyone, but like stuff just keeps getting more and more shitty for Jean Valjean, and he's just trying so hard to keep fucking Marius alive. Like, does Marius even deserve it at this point? And so that's where I'm ending today. I didn't even look to see what the next chapter is called. It is Sometimes We Fail with Success in Sight, which sounds very ominous. And like, I just want to know who he's going to run into. Like, he has to run into someone here. We're just still on the continuation of the hell that is the Paris sewer at this point.
No. No. Get the boy. Get the boy. Oh, he attacky. Let go.
So please don't judge me for how I look right now. It's honestly a lot better than yesterday. But today is actually Monday, which, yeah, the plans that I'd made for this didn't go like they should have. So I actually don't even know what day I last talked to you guys, but I've only read one more chapter of Les Miserables since then. And honestly, I'm just gonna keep it like that to wrap up this video because it's Monday, so I should be starting the next week's video. But Friday, the new Pokemon Violet and Scarlet games came out, which we love Pokemon, both my husband and I. So we got it right away, which there was actually some trouble with that. We pre-ordered it months ago. And so right when FNAC opened, we went there to pick them up and they didn't have them. They said the shipment was late, and so they only had like bits and pieces of it. And so like the person behind us, they had theirs, but they didn't have ours. And so Toma had to come back like 3 hours later to see if they have it, and they did. So we were able to start playing that around like lunchtime on Friday. And that's pretty much all we did for Friday and Saturday, was mainly just play Pokemon, which they are actually the lowest rated Pokemon games ever, and for good reason, because these are like the most glitchy and technical error-filled games we have ever played, and that is really saying something. Like, I started gaming with the Sega Genesis, and like those games run better than this kind of thing. So like if you're in like the Pokemon world at all, you will have seen this everywhere. So yeah, in 2022, games should not be running like that. And then yesterday I was determined to film, but like My hair isn't cooperating today. Like, I know it looks like trash. But yesterday, this whole part was literally just like sticking off my head and I could not get it to go down. And it was just from how I slept the night before, and like, it was so fucking dumb. And then this vest is something I've had for literal years, but I've only worn it once before, and I only have like 3 long sleeve shirts and none of them go with this. This was the best choice, and I basically just wanted to wear it to see if it's something I wanted to keep, but I just don't think I'm a best person. Like, I think the next time the clothes collection comes around, I'm probably gonna get rid of this. But yeah, the theme of these past few days, including today, is just hot mess. Like, it is a time here. So after that info dump, let's actually get into the book a bit. So this is a chapter where I'm actually gonna read quite a big chunk of it, but it's only a page and a half long, so it's not anything like that's gonna take forever or anything, but the chapter after that actually is super long. But this is the one that's called Sometimes We Fail with Success in Sight, and this is on page 1089, and it says, "He went on again. If he had not left his life in that pit, he seemed certainly to have left his strength there. The final effort had exhausted him. His weariness was now such that at every few paces he had to pause for breath. Once he had to sit down while he altered Marius's position, and he thought that he would never get up again. But if his strength was flagging, his will was not, and he rose. He went on despairingly, but almost quickly, and covered 100 paces without looking up, almost without breathing, until suddenly he bumped into the wall. He had reached a turning without seeing it. Looking up, he saw in the far distance a light, and this was no cavern light, but the clear white light of day. He saw the way of escape, and his feelings were those of a damned soul seeing the way out of hell. He was no longer conscious of fatigue or of the weight of Marius. His muscles were revived, and he ran rather than walked. As he drew near to it, he saw the outlet more plainly. It was a pointed arch, less high than the ceiling, which was growing gradually lower and less wide than the passageway. I can't turn the page. Which was narrowing. The tunnel ended in a bottleneck, logical enough in a prison, but not in a sewer, and something which has now been corrected. But when he reached it, Valjean stopped short. It was an outlet, but it offered no way out. The arch was closed with a stout grille, fastened with a huge rusty lock. He could see the keyhole in the bolt securely in place. Clearly it was double locked. It was one of those prison locks that were common in Paris at that time, and beyond the grille was open air, daylight, the river, and a strip of bank, very narrow but sufficient to escape by. All Paris, all liberty lay beyond it. To the right, downstream, the Pont d'Ina, to the left, the Pont des Invalides, one of the most deserted spots in Paris, a good place to escape from after dark. Flies came and went through the grille. The time was perhaps 8:30 in the evening, and dusk was falling. Valjean set Marius down by the wall where the floor was dry. Then, going to the grille, he seized it with both hands, but his frantic shaking had no effect. He tried one bar after another, hoping to find one less solid that might be used as a lever, or to break the lock, but no bar shifted. He had no lever, no possible purchase, no way of opening the gate. Was this to be the end of it? He had not the strength to turn back, and could not in any case have struggled again through the pit from which he had so miraculously emerged. And could he hope to escape the police patrol for a second time? In any event, where was he to go? Another outlet might be similarly obstructed. Probably all outlets were closed in this way. By chance he had entered by one that was not, and in doing so had escaped into a prison. It was the end. All his efforts had been futile. God had rejected him. Both men were caught in the great grim cobweb of death, and Valjean felt the running feet of the deadly spider. He turned his back to the grille and sank onto the floor beside the motionless form of Marius. Crouched rather than seated, his head sunk between his knees. There was no way out. It was the last extreme of anguish. Of whom did he think in that moment? Not of himself or of Marius. He thought of Cosette. And so I just read that entire chapter, and just glancing at literally the first sentence of the next one, you can see Thénardier does come into the picture next, and so that is where we'll be starting next week, technically today, but I mean it's gonna be 2 different videos. So the sewer scene in the movie, I remember like just not really caring about. Like, it's not my favorite part of Les Miserables, and so I honestly would have to rewatch it to remember if like this is what happens there, but I don't think it is, but that's something that I am very unsure of on whether I'm remembering correctly or not. But I'm definitely intrigued to see how the encounter with Thénardier goes next time, and that is actually a chapter I will be reading for today. Thank you for hanging out with me, even though this week was very, very weird and definitely did not turn out how I wanted it to. But until next time, bonne journée and au revoir.